All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
What up, everybody? It is a Monday. Terrific time of the week. Week full of potential. Say hi to Kim McAllister. Say hi to Albert. Say hi to Tony. Whole crew is here. I'm live in Washington, D.C. For those who don't know, my father is not doing so great right now. He's in the hospital, so we make a lot of runs to the hospital back and forth. And apparently, I see this when I'm there, but apparently this continues when I'm not there. He calls my name all the time. But you have to understand, that's both a sweet thing and it's also a sad thing, and but to other family members, it's an incredibly irritating thing. they feel as though, hey, Dad, we're here too. How come you all call for Mark? So I'm both flattered and yet I'm now the subject of some ridicule in the family. I guess that's what my mother even said. I don't think he's really calling your name, Mark. I think it's just he needs to call something. It's like everyone is trying to take the anyway. So that's why I'm here in Washington, D.C. We are continuing with shows every day. And what a show today. I mean, this is really quite extraordinary. We have, I'll go from back to front. We have the ABC7 Spencer Christian coming through. And Spencer, as you know, is a friend of the show and can speak and weigh in on so many subjects. But we want to talk about growing up in the Jim Crow South, which is something that Spencer Christian did, and the evolution of race in America. There's a lot that's improved in terms of race in America, but there's a lot of two-step forward, one step back to race in America. So Spencer will be here in the 11 o'clock hour, and we will discuss that. And again, he grew up in the segregated South, which I think makes him a particularly interesting person to speak about this and to give us his perspectives on this issue. It is Monday, Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. It's the Murdaugh murders. Courtney will be along, and with Courtney, attorney David Katz, who is someone who has defended murderers, as you know, when he was he's also prosecuted murderers. So he's done it all. The former former assistant U.S. attorney. And David, this is a guy who's still working, and all of our guests are still working. So I really appreciate them working us into their schedule. So they'll be talking about the Murdaugh murders. That'll happen at 10:35, Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. And I'll get to our first guest in a moment. Really excited to have him. I do want to acknowledge that our show is presented by our founding sponsor, tax attorney Steve Moskowitz, more than 30 years. Steve's been putting his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses alike. If you need help with your taxes, call Steve, 888-TAX-DEAL, or reach him at MoskowitzLLP.com. Smash that like button like a boss as we get started. We are excited about getting things underway. Yes, smash it. Smash it with your iron rod.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The one thing I will say before we get to the professor is, boy, what a weekend for the shooting down of the Chinese balloon, this immense balloon. And now it turns out that it's only one of two balloons. Reminds me a little bit of the document case, all those documents they find at Mar-a-Lago, and then there's a whole thing about Mar-a-Lago. Wait a minute, they find another set of documents now at Joe Biden's place, and then there's some at Mike Pence's place, and so on. By the way, they're doing another search of the Pence property. That'll happen in the next few days for more classified documents. But anyway, back to the balloon. So now there's a second balloon. It's over, I believe, South America. Isn't that right, Kim?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Although there was also news over the weekend that apparently there were a couple of these balloons spotted during the Trump administration.
Yes.
And I don't know what became of them. Like, what? We never even heard
Right.
about those balloons.
It was a bit awkward to hear the GOP, how they seize anything for both parties do it, but the GOP really does it. Come on, let's be honest. The GOP just can't wait to burn somebody at the stake.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah, they were trying to burn Biden at the stake for not shooting it down earlier. How come you didn't know about this? If you did know about it, how come you didn't announce something? Well, it happened 3 times under Donald Trump, and there was never any announcement, and there was never anything done about it.
Well, he says he didn't even know about it. He said he was never even informed.
Yeah. Well,
I guess they didn't feel like he was, really capable of making the correct decision, so they just took care of it. I don't know what.
I don't know what took care of it. Mean that just look the other way and ignore it. So
We got balloons coming out the wazoo.
Yeah, we've got balloons and classified documents. So welcome.
Yes.
We'll get to the earthquake in Turkey, and there was an earthquake, of course, in Buffalo, New York as well. The Buffalo quake was in the 4s. The Turkey earthquake close to 8. That is a major earthquake and many dead. 2,600 is the number I saw last. But right now, I want to welcome in a special guest. This guy I used to speak to in the 80s when I was doing KGO radio. And whenever I would do KGO, I would always try to get him because I thought he was just the greatest ambassador for science and for astronomy. And sure enough, in all the years in between, he's retired as the chair of astronomy at Foothill College, but he teaches introductory astronomy at the Fromm Institute at University of San Francisco. He's the lead author of the most frequently used basic astronomy textbook in the country. Astronomy was published free online by the nonprofit OpenStax project at Rice University. This is an effort to make all textbooks free. As you know, it's a huge encumbrance often to buy these different textbooks. And our guest was instrumental in getting this astronomy book published for free online. He published 7 science fiction stories based on solid astronomy. The International Astronomical Union has named asteroid 4859 asteroid Fraknoi to recognize his contributions to the public in the appreciation of science. Please welcome him now, Professor Andrew Fraknoi, everyone. Yeah. How are you, sir?
Well, thank you for that very generous introduction. I'm delighted to be with you.
You are well deserving of it. And I'll tell you something else I used to say, Kim, about Andrew Fraknoi. There was Carl Sagan was the big astronomy and cosmos voice for explaining stuff back when in the 80s, really was when I first interacted with Professor Fraknoi. And I said, the Bay Area has a Carl Sagan. It is Andrew Fraknoi, without question. You have that ability to communicate these ideas, some of them very important, some of them very complicated, and you haven't lost that. So I used to listen to you when you were on Pat's show, and I was green with envy that I felt like she had kind of claimed you as we were all on KGO. So again, now my effusive affections, I'll try to put them to the side for a moment. We can get on with things. Big announcement, Professor Fraknoi, and that is Jupiter they just discovered 12 more moons, I saw.
A major announcement from the Mark Thompson Show. A major announcement.
Well, it is sort of a major announcement because it makes Jupiter it has more moons than any other planet in the solar system, right?
That's correct. And we're getting into the 90s, which is an amazing number of moons.
What?
For a planet like us that only has 1 moon, we're green with green cheese envy about the moons of Jupiter.
92 moons. And
this
and
is Casey
exactly
Kasem on American Top 40 in Hollywood.
That's right. Jupiter moving up to the top position with 92 moons. Now, moons, I'm learning, though, as I look at the Jupiter situation and that announcement, I was just reading some of the articles about it. Moons can oftentimes be fragments of other moons. In other words, they take on an orbit also. And so all of a sudden, the moon thing doesn't seem as though it's a perfect orb the way our moon is.
That's right. And not all the moons that we're talking about are the kind of moons you bring home to mom with pride. Some of them are pretty pathetic as moons go. All you need to do to be a moon is to orbit a planet. There's no size requirement. So some of them, as you say, are rather small, maybe a mile, a couple of miles across. What's remarkable is that at this great distance, we've been able to find these smaller objects and to total up how many objects are orbiting these giant planets that are at the outskirts of our solar system.
Well, it's interesting to hear you say that, because I have to say I was struck by, we don't know exactly how many moons. They say 12 more moons were discovered around you. I'm thinking, really, we don't have a solid handle on what's happening in our own solar system?
No, because things are relatively small and far away, and so they're hard to see, because the way we see things out there is by sunlight reflecting from them. And the further out you go, the less sunlight there is, and therefore the harder it is to see these faint reflections from small objects. So there must be many moons we haven't seen yet, especially when you get out to Saturn and Uranus and Neptune, these really outermost planets. And there are astronomers who every day wake up with the aim of, I'm going to find yet another moon or yet another small body out there. Even little Pluto now has 5 moons known instead of the one that we knew about when I was first teaching. So it's great.
A couple
Kim's
of
a fan
questions.
of the Hubble. Aren't you, Kim, a fan of the Hubble telescope?
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
its imagery?
Yes.
So as a Professor Andrew Fraknoi is speaking, I thought of what he's talking about, which is, our ability to see things. And the Hubble, of course, can see things into the farthest most reaches of the universe, it would seem.
Yeah.
Well, yes, the Hubble's been great, but now we have something even better. I'm sorry, Kim, you need to find a new telescope to be a fan of, because we've recently launched the James Webb Space Telescope.
That's right. You have pictures on your website.
Much larger mirror than the Hubble. And so we can see even further out with this James Webb Telescope than with the Hubble. Well, one of the big things we're going to try to do with this telescope is to look so far out that we're looking back almost to the beginning of time.
Oh, that's so cool.
Which is a mind-boggling idea. Let me just mention for our listeners what I'm talking about, because light takes a while to travel. Light is the fastest thing there is, but it's not infinitely fast. It takes a while to travel. And so the further away we go, the longer the light takes to get to us. So as we look out deep into the universe, the light we see, or the heat rays that we see with the James Webb Telescope, took a while to get to us. And so we're looking back into the past. We're seeing things as they were. And the game is to see as far back as we possibly can, back perhaps just after the Big Bang, the creation event of the universe. And that's what the James Webb is going to enable us to do.
Well, Kim's a one telescope woman, but she, I think, could warm up to James Webb. Go ahead, Kim. Sorry.
Just a couple viewer questions from Calvin Wong. Why didn't these moons show up on a telescope? Why just now are we seeing them?
Yeah, so it's absolutely true that the telescopes are what we need to see faint objects. The fainter things are, the more light you need to collect for it to make an impression, not just on your eye, but on a photograph or on a digital screen. So the problem has been that these objects out there are so faint that the light simply hasn't registered with smaller telescopes. We need bigger telescopes and better light gathering instruments, much like your phone now can see things in the dark because they have such a sensitive digital screen essentially in your phone. Same way our telescopes and our instruments have gotten better at seeing faint things.
One more from Anonymous. At what size diameter does a body of rock orbiting a planet become considered a moon?
That's a great question, and we don't have a good answer. Here's the problem. Around each of those 4 giant planets at the outskirts of our solar system, there's not only moons, but rings. We know Saturn has a ring. You probably learned that in school. And Saturn is a ring that gets all the media attention. But there's actually a ring around Jupiter, a ring around Uranus, and a ring around Neptune. And these rings are made up of even smaller particles, some of them dust size. So these rings consist of a lot of particles, perhaps millions of particles orbiting in a disk. What makes a ring particle rather than a moon? How big do you have to be before you're considered your own moon? We've now found moons inside the rings of Saturn, for example, because they're bigger than the ring particles. So we astronomers are completely bewildered by where to draw the line. And we're just kind of giving up on that part and saying, well, if it's big, we'll call it a moon and leave us alone.
Well, it's an emerging science. The perfection, you talk about the origins of the universe. I tried to read this book. It's called The First 3 Minutes. And it's really hard. It's really got a lot of, to me anyway, it seemed like there was a lot of physics or chemistry or stuff. And you realize that the first 3 minutes, after the creation, the Big Bang, that was when all of these different things are happening, all these physical processes, some of which don't even exist, I think, in the universe anymore, or that we, at least on our planet. They're all going on simultaneously, and they go through all of this stuff. But the reason I mention it is when you talk about the origins of the universe, and I think about the perfection of Earth, all the stuff that had to come together to make this place. I mean, it really is an inconceivable thing how evolution had to favor so many different processes for us to get to this perfectly balanced place.
That's absolutely right. We call this cosmic evolution. And I want to answer your question in two parts, actually. One of the things that I think is really exciting that happened as the Big Bang explosion was happening was that it was hot. And it was actually so hot that the entire universe was like the inside of our star, inside of our sun today. It was hot enough so that simple particles could fuse together and make heavier elements. So the early universe was like the heart of a star. And some, for example, of the helium with which you blow up balloons at a children's birthday party, that element helium was created in the Big Bang by this heat. But then, as you say, the second part of this is that after the Big Bang dispersed and the universe, the matter of the universe began to gather together and make planets and stars and galaxies of stars, an amazing regularity and almost, as you say, perfection was able to be manifested by this random material. Gravity could pull things together into beautiful balls of gas that make stars, balls of solid material that make planets. And on these planets, life could evolve, life that eventually on Earth at least became intelligent. And through that, the universe is able to appreciate itself. We are matter in the universe, which is capable of appreciating the beauty of the universe. And I like to celebrate that idea.
So that is like almost a literary take on it. That's really beautiful. Can you explain why the Earth's core is slowing down? What does that mean? The Earth's core is slowing down.
That's a recent piece of news that geologists have noticed that there's an ever so slight slowing down of the spinning of the Earth's core. Just like the Earth itself spins every 24 hours, the molten core of metal inside the Earth also has a spin. And this is a very small spin that this is really not something that anybody needs to worry about. But geologists have just recently found it. So no, we can't yet explain what's going on.
Wouldn't you say, Professor Fraknoi, we will have incinerated the planet well before the core issue becomes something that we have to worry about?
Well, at the very least, we will have destroyed the habitability of its surface, which is so sad. Here we've inherited this wonderful planet and we're messing it up. It's really hard for astronomers to watch.
Yeah. Where did all the matter in the universe come from, asks Randy.
Right. Well, this is the fundamental question of both science and, for some people, religion. Where did the universe come from? Why is there this amazing collection of matter and energy that we call the universe? And one answer is it came from the Big Bang. Space, time, matter, and energy were created in the Big Bang. But that's not a very satisfying answer. We ask what happened before the Big Bang. Now, the proper answer to that question is time itself began in the Big Bang, so you're not allowed to ask that question. But that's not very satisfying. And so scientists and everyone who likes to think keeps asking this fundamental question: is our universe, is all that we see and can observe part of something bigger? Is there something perhaps called the multiverse, which is now getting a lot of publicity in comic books and comic book movies? Is there the possibility of multiple universes in different dimensions of space and time, of which we are just one small component, one universe among many others? And there's no way to do science about any of that right now. This is sheer metaphysical speculation, but ain't it fun? It's so much fun to think about these ideas, and that's why the comic book people are doing it. And all those Marvel movies are talking to you about the multiverse, because this is just fun to speculate about.
Our last couple of minutes with Andrew Fraknoi. I want to ask you about Mars. It gets a lot of conversation now around Elon Musk and sort of these super rich dudes who are all planning, condo developments up there and meta spas up there on Mars or whatever it might be. I always thought that, and we're knowing more about Mars through exploration, but I always thought that just even travel to Mars is prohibited because of radiation. Can you speak to just the challenges in trying to go to this place that everybody's talking about, working shuttle service to?
Absolutely, and you are right that one of the things that people are not considering properly is what kind of dangers there are just getting to Mars, because you can't just get in and in 5 hours you're there. We're talking about trips that could take months or years to travel between the planets, and during that time you're exposed to the radiation and particles from the sun. Our star, the sun, puts out a lot of light and other kinds of radiation, but it also has a wind, a kind of blowing outward of particles. And these particles, when they hit you, it's very much like being exposed to radiation in a nuclear power plant. Workers in the nuclear power plant have to wear a dosimeter, a special badge that measures how many particles have gone through them. And after a while, they're not allowed to work there anymore. And if there happens to be a wind gust from the sun, as often happens, where more particles come off temporarily, and there are astronauts on their way to Mars, they could exceed their allowed dosage of high energy particles going through them. And they, for example, might have trouble having kids once they get to Mars, or they might find other kinds of damage, like why it is that your doctor puts a lead apron on you when he takes an x-ray, because you don't want to be overexposed to radiation. So ships will need to be shielded, and we'll need to be careful when we launch, when the sun isn't active. It's not such a trivial thing to get to Mars. And then once you get to Mars, the important thing is that there's no oxygen, and the air pressure is so low that if you were to step out unprotected, your blood would actually boil. On Mars, we are at or above the boiling point of blood. And if you don't wear a pressure suit, your blood, like getting the bends, your blood would start to get bubbles inside it from the low pressure on Mars.
It
So
sounds
you not
unpleasant.
have to be careful going there, you have to be careful when you get there and carry a lot of pressure suits and other equipment with you.
Wow. Well, this has been great. I love this as a little primer, or a little sampler. By the way, I have a personal question to ask you. When I knew you, and I never really, I feel like we haven't ever met in person, but I feel as though am I right? I talked to you on the radio for hour after hour.
I have the same feeling that we've talked on the radio, but I've never before seen your face. So it's great to meet you.
Yeah, it really is great. But I always called you Andy Fraknoi. And I've noticed that you've dropped, it's maybe not you, maybe, just the way people refer to you. It's now Andrew Fraknoi. I don't hear anyone call you Andy Fraknoi anymore. I always felt Andy was an across the fence kind of, that's why I liked it, because it's Carl Sagan-y, very approachable. Andy Fraknoi is here. What's the story on Andy versus Andrew?
Well, I began my career at KGO with Jim Eason, who was one of the legendary people who interviewers, and he had his own show in the middle of the afternoon. And he kind of adopted me. I had never been on the radio before. He tutored me on how to tell jokes and make my answers shorter and less difficult words. He was a great mentor. And he got to know me and started calling me Andy. And so then everybody on KGO called me Andy. So I'm generally known to people as Andrew, but I'm happy to be called Andy by my friends.
This is Casey Kasem on American.
No, what I thought was
what the
Ron
hell
Owens
is going on in the United States of America?
That's the one. Well, Andy or Andrew, it's really cool to see you again. And I must say, I want to spend just a quick 30 seconds on this project, which is so special. The book Astronomy. It was published free online. Tell everybody about this book quickly and about this project, more to the point.
Sure. So this is a nonprofit called OpenStax, OpenStax. And you can Google it online. They've been funded by the Gates Foundation, the Hewlett Foundation, and others to produce an introductory textbook for every subject in college free of charge. Just in astronomy, we estimate we've saved $60 million for students in the last 6 years because their astronomy textbook was free. So I'm really honored to be the lead author on this book. The astronomy book is called Astronomy. The psychology introductory book is called Psychology. It's very simple to remember. And these are all free textbooks to help people afford the first few years of college. We like to think of our book as the first astronomy textbook with jokes because I helped write it. But by all means, look it up online at OpenStax Astronomy.
OpenStax, and again, Stax is STAX, and Astronomy. Congratulations on the success of that and your 7 fiction stories. Very cool. So neat to see you as prolific as you are, and a great visit with you. Thank you, Professor Andrew Fraknoi. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Yeah. Andrew Fraknoi, everybody. Yeah, very cool.
So great to see his face. Love it.
Yeah. I felt as though, smash the like button for a little science. And the professor.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Yeah, damn it. Smash it with your iron rod.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It's astounding to me that the Earth here is as seismically active as it seems to have been. This is news out of Turkey, of course, and Kim will tell you news out of Turkey and also news out of Buffalo, New York, also a seismically active region. And she'll give you the very latest on that in a moment. The Grammys were last night. Bonnie Raitt, Bay Area. How about a shout out for Bonnie Raitt winning a Grammy? And it was not expected. Yeah, it was not expected. Bonnie Raitt with the Grammy. We'll get into more on that in the last half hour of the show.
There was a picture of her when she won, and her face was just shock. I think everyone expected it to be Beyonce, and there's quite a bit of feeling like Beyonce was slighted.
Yeah, there's a feeling, we can, again, discuss this more. I'd love to get the reactions of those who care about such things. There is a stupidity, and Harry Styles even mentioned it, and you know how we feel about it here, about comparing pieces of art and expression and then declaring one a winner. We're all moved in different ways by different things, and you're entertained, or some songs just make you dance. Are they not as significant as the song that speaks about, a humanitarian crisis and homelessness. Maybe they're not as significant in one way, but they're significant enough to, get into your soul in some way and to make you dance. Anyway, you get the point. That might have been an inartful comparison. Same is true with the Oscars. You can't compare movies. One's a comedy, one's a drama, one's a heavy drama, one's a dramedy, one's a, etc. So that said, though, Kim, Beyonce, they feel hasn't been given the big awards. She's gotten, a mantle full of the smaller awards. Isn't that basically what they're saying?
Yeah, smaller awards. So she has more Grammys than anyone now. She set a record, but it's all for smaller things. It's not for these big album of the year, song of the year type of awards, the biggies. Yeah.
Right.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Smash the like button for Ron Owens. Come on now.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Damn it. Use your iron rod or whatever's handy. When we come back after Kim's news, Mark's Murder Mystery Monday, the Murdaugh murders. Wow, that is a lot of M's. We'll stack it all up for you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the show. And Kim's news next. Mark Thompson Show.
Welcome to Mark Thompson Show. I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Federal prosecutors say there are 2 people in custody for planning to attack energy substations in Maryland. This is a pretty serious situation. The U.S. attorney noting the 2 were arrested for wanting to completely destroy Baltimore. Officials say the suspects from Maryland and Florida were motivated by a racist extremist ideology. Americans feeling less confident about the economy. A new Gallup poll shows more than 2/3 of those surveyed expect inflation to rise in the first half of this year, while 48% believe that stock market values will decline. A whopping 74% look for more interest hikes in 2023. I was reading a story this morning that shows that one of the indicators of the economy is tips at strip clubs. If the tips go down at strip clubs, that means that you don't have a lot of money going around. Apparently, the tips at strip clubs are declining, so that's unfortunate.
Wow!
I just want to find 11,780, which is one more than we have. I only need 11,000.
I only need 11,000. That's it. Just give me 11,000. Yeah. Okay, so listen, this is this horrible story this morning. The United States now pledging help after a pair of massive earthquakes killed at least 2,500 people in Turkey and in Syria. Rescue and recovery efforts are underway, the damage widespread. Meanwhile, no reports of damage or injuries after a minor earthquake hit the Buffalo, New York area earlier today. But again, I think the latest estimate in the Turkey-Syria earthquake is at least 2,600 people killed in this event, and it was a magnitude 7.8 earthquake there. Diplomatic fallout continues after the shooting down of this balloon, the spy balloon. China accusing the United States of using indiscriminate force in the military downing of what it claims was a civilian weather balloon that just strayed off course. China filing a formal complaint with the U.S. Embassy in Beijing.
Wow, that's a ballsy move, don't you think?
Yeah.
It's like someone catching you, in their house, rifling through the, go, no, I was just sorry. I was just checking to make sure everything was in order. And now I'm going to bring a legal action against you for interrupting. Just a very, very odd, thin ice kind of claim. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, Cracker Barrel. This is a huge story too. Cracker Barrel is encouraging couples, because this is where you want to get engaged. This is the stuff of dreams being made. Cracker Barrel is encouraging couples to get engaged at their restaurants this month. The company is hosting an I Said Yes at Cracker Barrel Valentine's Day contest, February 10th through the 16th. Couples who post a public video to Instagram showing them popping the question at one of the chain's Southern-style eateries can win free food for a whole year.
Wow.
Cracker Barrel also offering free desserts to guests on Valentine's Day.
Yum, yum.
That's where you want to get engaged. Where did he ask? Well, see, Wiz at Cracker Barrel. And
well, it's
I got a ring in my pop.
To be fair, that can be a fun place on Valentine's Day.
That's not fake. That's real.
This report, sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz for more than 30 years. Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, call Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL or moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, and speaking of Steve Moskowitz, I see him in the green room. Bring him on now after a 2-week recharging of his, I would imagine, his head, his being. He is back. And how about a warm Mark Thompson Show welcome for our exclusive sponsor, Steve Moskowitz. I don't want to get too personal, but I'm hoping it was a restful
It was very nice. I went off to Hawaii for 2 weeks.
Nice. What island?
Great. I was in Kauai. And it's the air there is just so nice with the trade winds and all. I mean, it's like fruit scented air. It's just really nice. Obviously, the temperature difference was a little bit different as opposed to here in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And the pineapples and papayas, everything is so sweet, and it's just everybody seems so happy over there. People that live there are happy. If you're vacationing in Hawaii and you're not happy, something's really wrong.
Right.
I mean, really, really wrong. And
it makes sense that a tax attorney and CPA would be getting a little rest in before the push between now and April. But that's not the drop dead date anymore, is it, Steve? I mean, you can do a lot in terms of when people have to get their taxes in or when businesses have to file.
An awful lot of people postpone their returns. And, when people think about postponing their returns, they think, oh, well, somebody wasn't ready or the preparer was too busy. But, there's a lot of other reasons. For example, we talk about pensions. Well, what happened? Oh, thank you, Flo. It's good to be back. And with pensions, with a lot of them, you get up to the time of filing the return, including extension. So you can have somebody that's finished their 2022 year and they don't have a cash available now to put any money in a pension, but they have until the extended due date, which depending on the type of business you have would be either September 15th, 23, or even October 15th, 23. They can earn the money in 23 and still take the deduction for 22. So there's all kinds of things.
I would think the tax code as it evolves, and this is one of the things I talk about when I talk about you, you're so aware of every nook and cranny. It offers businesses some advantages and people advantages that it doesn't have before. I mean, I hear about how they've ramped up enforcement, but are there some advantages now that you see that might not have been available to tax filers a decade ago, let's say?
Oh, there's all kinds of things. Now, most of the advantages are for business owners. But the bottom line is, in America, an awful lot of business is small business. And that's where most of the jobs are, where most of the earnings are. And, small business is a wide category. The government, for example, when we're talking about ERC, they think a small business is under 500 people. To me, that's pretty big. But, even if you're the mom and pop store with a few employees, there's so much that can be done. And that's one of the things with our services, that small businesses need all kinds of services. We've talked about ERC, but also the accounting and the advising and HR. But they can't afford to hire one full-time person to do this, much less a team, because the guy that does the taxes is not the guy that does the HR, is not the person that does the other thing. So one of the nice things about our firm is we offer you all these services, but just in the amount that you need, So basically, you get everything that you need, like the big companies have, but at a tiny fraction of the cost.
Yeah, this is the point. Contact Steve for all those services. I'm so glad that, his first in-person visit, if you will, with us, we got a chance to touch on a few of these things because you can see all the different ways that Steve Moskowitz can help you. MoskowitzLLP.com is, of course, the website, MOSKOWITZ, MoskowitzLLP.com. And throughout the country, we have listeners and viewers across the country. Steve can help you wherever you are, not only in the Bay Area, not only in California, but wherever you are. 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAXDEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL, or MoskowitzLLP.com. Steve, great to have you back, and thanks again.
Mark, thanks. It's great to be back with you.
All right.
Aloha.
See you.
Aloha.
See you next hour. Good stuff. Smash the like button with your iron rod if you've got it.
Iron rod.
Yeah, but right now, without any further delay, Mondays, we like to feature a murder mystery. And we bring in my other half, who is obsessed with this world that I have really only a passing interest in, to be kind. This is Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
Welcome to Mark's Murder Mystery Monday.
It makes me laugh every time I hear it. Here she is, the person who takes us through Mark's Murder Mystery Monday. It's Courtney, everybody. Courtney.
Hello, hello, hi.
Hi, Courtney.
Yeah, hi.
And I want to...
I'll take a passing interest any day.
Yeah.
Really a win.
I really don't have any interest in the whole murder thing, but you once you lay this stuff out, you do get me sort of interested. And today you are lucky because a guy who has broken down the Murdaugh murders on television, he's been called in by Fox News Channel, he's been called in by various networks of all sorts. He is the former assistant U.S. attorney. He's David Katz. Yeah, he is with us. And David has prosecuted murderers and defended murderers, Courtney, so he's just the guy for you.
I mean, finally a professional, honestly, and Josh. So it's nice to have David here to talk about this murder that I'm reading, even as I'm waiting to come on the show, as updates from the trial that are pretty significant. So it's certainly something that people that have been following this story for some time are curious to see what happens in the next couple of weeks. So
tell me where you want to start, and David can chime in, I guess, anytime. I don't know how the dance will work, but we'll work it out as we go. What is this Murdaugh murder? What happened, and what's the state of the state?
Well, I'll quickly talk about what happened. The string of bodies, unfortunately, dates back to 2015, I believe. So we won't go back in that full timeline, although I have brought information around the suspected relationships to those murders that the Murdaugh or Murdaugh family have. It's interesting, in the opening remarks, even Alec's attorney mentioned the different ways that people pronounce their last name. And in fact, his name is pronounced Alec, even though it is spelled Alex. So I'll just refer to them as Murdaugh, but there are several ways that people are referring to his family.
Murdaugh. Okay, good.
So but speaking about why Alec's on trial right now, he's on trial right now for the murder of his wife and son. So on June 7th, 2021, Alec Murdaugh, 54, is accused of shooting his wife, Maggie, 52, and his younger son, Paul, 22, at the family's hunting estate in South Carolina. He has one other son named Buster, who's slightly older than Paul. From what I can tell, there are really three areas of focus for the prosecution, which we can talk about after I just go through the quick timeline of that evening, which is cell phone data, Snapchat video, and then evidence that places Alec at the crime scene. So to familiarize everybody who probably knows the Murdaugh family, but they're a prominent legal family in the Low Country region of South Carolina. So from 1920 to 2006, 3 members of the Murdaugh family consecutively served as solicitor in charge of prosecution for all criminal cases in the state's 14th district. In fact, locals referred to the 5-county district as the Murdaugh country. I think I even remember they were like taking down a painting or a portrait of one of the Murdaugh family members from the actual room where they were trying the case. They're just so embedded in sort of the legal system in this part of South Carolina. So for the evening in question, which is June 7th, 2021, at 7:56, Paul sends a Snapchat video to friends showing his riding around the state with his father. So there's a image of his father and he's playing with this like tree and Paul's capturing that and kind of giggling on the video. At 8:15, Murdaugh's wife arrives home and they begin to have dinner together. And at 8:30 on the evening in question, Paul's phone starts moving toward the dog kennels. So they had dog kennels on the property. This was a hunting property that the family owned. At 8:44, a video is taken by Paul at the kennels and allegedly proves that Maggie, Paul, and Alec were together at the kennels. And I've actually brought the audio of that video because you can clearly hear 3 voices in that video. And from what I understand, it's fairly damning. And I don't believe that Alec knew that Paul was taking this video. And he was, in fact, I think, taking this video for a friend who was trying to help him with one of the injured dogs. And so at 8.
And again, I'm sorry, again, for somebody who's Alec is the father and
Alec
Paul
is the father.
Alec's the father and Paul is the son.
Yeah,
okay.
Should we play the video right now?
Let's play it and hear
Get back.
A second voice, right?
There's 3 voices, yeah. This is Paul.
Quit, Cash. Quit. It's okay. Come here. It's not bad. Come here, Cash. Cash.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth.
Hey, Bubba.
That's a guinea.
There's a chicken. Come here, Cash. Cash. Quit.
So you can clearly hear that there's 3 voices in that video, right? There's Paul, there's Maggie, and then allegedly there's Alec's voice in the background. And actually,
and why is this significant? Because he said he was there alone, or what?
He said he wasn't at the stable, or sorry, at the kennels with his wife and son. But that video places him there. And
the father said he wasn't there, and it turns out he was there. Okay.
Yeah. And the young man who received the video, his name's Rogan, he testified, I think, that was 100% Alec's voice. So Paul takes that video at 8:44, and at 8:49, the prosecution says Paul's phone is locked and goes silent forever. So nobody hears from Paul again. At 9 to 9:30 that evening, Paul and Maggie are killed. And at 9:06...
Killed how?
So they were
shot?
both shot. Yes.
Okay.
Maggie was shot 5 times with a rifle and died very close to her son, including the back of the head. Paul's... I won't even get into Paul's.
Geez, this is brutal. This is pretty brutal. Okay, they're both shot. Okay, I want to bring David here in a second, but
and then I'll just finish that. Yeah. Murdaugh says that he goes to see his mom at 9:06, and then he returns at 10:07. Well, at 10:07, he has returned. He's gone to the kennels. He finds both his wife and son dead, and then he calls 911. So this all happens between 8 and 10 o'clock that evening.
David, why does this? What's the motive here? Is he just? Why is he killing? Let's assume again. I don't know. You start wherever you want, David Katz, please. But I'm okay. I don't know.
Let me start with what Courtney had.
Yeah.
Let me start with what Courtney had to say, because I thought it was important what she just did to walk people through it. In terms of how it developed, apparently this video or Snapchat or whatever the son Paul has taken, Apple has ways to protect, the content of devices. And so with him having died right then, them not having the password, they claimed that it took them about a year to obtain this evidence that Courtney just spoke about. And that was really the break in the case. People ask, well, why wasn't the dad, Alec, why wasn't he charged for this year? And what they're pointing out, and it's important, is that they did not have this evidence. But when they got this evidence, this was what they considered one of the real bombshells that the prosecution says is going to convict him, because he's already had 2 interviews with the police. Never a good idea in a criminal investigation. Take the 5th. If anything has to be said, talk to your lawyer, have your lawyer figure out what ought to be said in the situation. A lot of innocent people are convicted based on having said foolish things, and obviously a lot of guilty people are convicted based on saying incriminating things. And this fellow Alex seems to be in the latter group, because, as you pointed out, Mark, he told the police twice in 2 different recorded interviews that he was not there. And this Snapchat or video that his son took was obviously done unawares to the dad. And now it's the dad's undoing, because he said that he wasn't there. If he is there, who on earth could kill these people except him? They always say, find the real killers. We need to find the real killers. One thing he did to make it look like, according to the prosecution, there are real killers out there who are not him, is, as Courtney was pointing out, he shot the wife with a rifle, but he shot the son allegedly with a different weapon, so that it could be argued one day, oh, it must have been 2 different assailants. Each one had their own weapon. One shot one shot the other. See, it was 2 guys, to throw the suspicion off that it would have been one guy who shot both of them. He allegedly used 2 different weapons. Now, to turn to your question about
the motivation. Thank you. Yeah.
Now, motive is incredibly important here, because if you were actually enough of a psychopath, and I mean an extreme psychopath, to have done something like this, kill your own son, you have to be thinking, the prosecution says, that it's so outrageous, it's so far-fetched that someone would kill their own son and their wife, even if they didn't get along with their wife or not, and the defense has put on a lot of evidence that he got along great with his wife. But whatever your relationship with your son and your wife, to kill them as a way to delay your financial problems seems like an awfully huge stretch for the prosecution. But the prosecution wants to show that, and just this morning the judge said they're going to be allowed to show motive by showing how much financial trouble Alec, the dad, was in at that time. And Mark and Courtney, one of the reasons he was in so much trouble, and it was imminent, was that morning he'd been confronted by an accountant or something at his law firm saying that the books didn't add up, that money that should have been paid by Alec into the law firm wasn't. Where was the money? All the books were being checked. That was just that morning that Alec was confronted with that. On top of that, as Courtney said, there were 2 other incidents which are too long to get into, but one of them is a boat crash. And there was litigation and a lot of fury over this boat crash, which is where his other son, was this son. This son, who was out boating, was drunk. Somebody got killed. There was all sorts of litigation over that. One of the dad's defenses, Dad Alex, is charged with double murder. One of his defenses is that, it must have been someone seeking revenge on account of his son in the boat crash. But the judge allowed this morning the financial evidence to come in that he'd been confronted that morning with financial improprieties, embezzlement, and that in 3 or 4 days, the hearing about this boat crash was about to take place, which also implicated the dad, which is a long story, and that it was to delay, to buy time, and to deflect attention away from that inquiry by the law firm and that lawsuit about the boat crash, which the dad was actually implicated in several ways. To delay that was the motive, and it succeeded. That it was delayed, and all the sympathy turned to Alec, the dad, not wrath, not fury over the embezzlements, over all the other bad things that he'd done. So it successfully delayed things. It successfully deflected attention until the police got a hold of and figured out how to unlock the son Paul's video phone and retrieve that video that Courtney has described so well and played, which is incredibly incriminating. I mean, a lot of people say it's game, set, and match. That's what they said when I was on Fox TV with Trace Gallagher, that it was game, set, and match. And they call it the Deadly Dynasty case because, as Courtney pointed out, they had an amazing legal dynasty. He was the fourth generation, and his three progenitors, his three ancestors in a row, had been the chief prosecutor of that county for 90 years.
Wow. Wow. So, Courtney, is this game, set, match? Were you followed this case all along? Does it, this felt like watershed moment, right?
It did. And also, I mean, this is something I read online, so I'll use the word alleged, but there's video of Alec talking to the police once they arrive, and he's explaining the family members that he's called after the murders. And he's called his two brothers, and then he's called Rogan, who's the young man that received this video and who had been chatting with Paul. That's pretty incriminating. So before he calls his son Buster or anybody else in his family, he calls the young boy that has incriminating evidence against him. The whole thing, I mean, no one would accuse him of being thoughtful about anything that he's done regarding his financial crimes and even the incidences where people have lost life associated with his family. But certainly he was all over the place that evening. And he had, it came to light this morning that when he went to allegedly go visit his mom, which it seems like he did go to her house, he was trying to tell her caretaker that he had been there twice as long as he had actually been there. So again, you know, and then to go on to hire somebody to try to kill him. A lot of the things that happened in this case don't make sense, but certainly the recent evidence that has come up in this trial really point to incriminating circumstances. So,
Mark, can I just say what his side? Mark, being a criminal defense attorney now, can I just say a little bit about his side of the story?
Yeah, please. We just showed a picture of the guy you hired or tried to hire in the murder thing. Go ahead, David, please.
His side of the story is that someone as smart as him would have thought of some other way to get a delay than to kill his own son and to kill his wife. And the motive is so preposterous that they can let in financial evidence all day long, even if he was in financial trouble, even if he wanted to delay those proceedings. He could have played victim something else, even if that was his game. But to kill the two of them, son and his wife, seems outlandish. And the defense says, look, there's not the kind of evidence that you normally have here. There's no eyewitness. There's no exculpatory statement. So they argued, although it's pretty exculpatory when you make a false exculpatory statement, when you say you were somewhere else and then physical evidence shows you weren't somewhere else. And they also point out that, things like him changing his shirt, he could have had good reason to change his shirt. The prosecution says he changed his shirt so that he wouldn't have blood on the shirt. He could say he was wearing the other shirt the whole night, right? So he's in a world of trouble, but it's certainly one of those stay tuned. But this morning was a very important morning because if the judge had not allowed in any of the financial evidence, then the defense would have been free to argue there was no motive. He had no reason to do this. This is all a terrible accident. He's being framed. It's a terrible concatenation of circumstances, but it's all circumstantial, and none of it really points to guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what the defense would like to argue, and what they probably will the next few days.
Wow. Exculpatory, yes. This has more wrapped up in it. I mean, by the way, David, you'll concede, I mean, you've seen so many, and Courtney, you as well, because you follow this true crime world. The notion of creating a distraction, regardless of your financial situation, by shooting and killing two of your, I mean, isn't it? It is. Have you ever seen anything like this?
I don't think where someone has gone to these lengths, but if you like Agatha Christie and you like all of this kind of murder mystery, people do amazing things. But yes, normally there's a much more natural motive. Even if you look at a case like O.J. or Rittenhouse, think of those two different cases, two different acquittals. But there was a lot more. We could understand the motive, right, in both of them. Rittenhouse was the guy in Kenosha, Wisconsin, who got acquitted after shooting people in that street scene, that street demonstration. And, of course, O.J., we all know about. That would have been jealousy, a sudden rage, This is a very peculiar motive, and it may end up that he's found not guilty, but I really doubt it. As Courtney was saying, there's the other cases too. There's the boat crash. She's not the first person to die on that property. The wife of the housekeeper also met her death there. There was a lawsuit over that. At the very least, it seems that Alec, the lawyer, embezzled about $4 million from that. We had testimony on that the other day. So I think when push comes to shove, while they're not supposed to consider bad character against the defendant, here there's so many prior acts. Yes, they go to motive, but they also go, I think, to a jury that's not going to be inclined, despite all the defense efforts, to acquit him. I think he's going to be convicted and get a life sentence in this case.
Oh,
there's never been anything like this.
It does feel like there's never been anything like it. Courtney, what can we say? You've brought us, ripped right out of today's headlines type thing. Thank you very much.
Oh, yes. Well, it seemed like some of your fans were interested in our discussing this story, and I'm so glad that David could join.
Yeah, to have David here is really
so
like a super luxury. So I want to thank David Katz, who is typically with us on Thursdays. And in this case, he joined us especially because I'd seen him on Fox News Channel talking about this. You know, he is, David, you are a legal expert in so many different ways. And I know you're also a working lawyer. So I appreciate you taking time out. Really do appreciate all that you add to these conversations. Thank you, my friend.
Well, Mark, I'm happy to be with you in large part because you're intellectually interested in these topics, and I think you present them so well.
Oh, that's so kind of you to say. All right. We'll talk to you on Thursday, and thanks again, David Katz.
See you then at 11. Hear you then at 11.
Yeah, see you at 11. That's right, 11 o'clock on Thursdays when he's... And Courtney, another successful execution, if you'll pardon the expression in the case of murder.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm excited for our Cracker Barrel Valentine's date. So
yes, well, maybe that will happen.
Romantic.
I can only hope.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
it's
Courtney would tell you that it would
better
be the Cracker Barrel Valentine's Day would be more romantic than anything else in our relationship. Wouldn't you agree, honey?
It would be more romantic than anything he's planned for Valentine's Day.
I don't even know where to go with that.
I'll tell you the truth. I feel that I bring such romance to every day in our life.
Is that what it is?
I don't need a day carved out for any sort of, upping the ante on romance. But
disappointed. Like my image of you as a high romance kind of guy is dashed.
Well, I think it's high romance, but Courtney has issues. What can I tell you? I think the problems are with her. That is Mark's Murder Mystery Monday for today.
Mark's Murder Mystery Monday on the Mark Thompson Show.
Yes. That's a wild one, that Murdaugh thing. Man, that's crazy. I really didn't know any of the details. They say, well, how will we ever find a juror who doesn't know the details of the Murdaugh case? Here's one. I have no idea who the guy is. So I learned a lot in that conversation. That was really cool. When we come back, smash the like button like a boss. I haven't hit you for any money. We're a crowd-funded show. I will remind you that we
it with your iron rod.
We depend on super stickers, super chats on your Patreon subscriptions. You can go to themarkthompsonshow.com. And there you can click through to Patreon, become a monthly subscriber or just a one-time contributor. Same is true of PayPal, one-time contributor or a monthly subscriber. It does help us. We are crowd-funded. Without you, we go away. When we come back, Spencer Christian from ABC7 talks about growing up in the Jim Crow South. And also, during Black History Month, I just felt so much attention, and it's sadly brought to light in so many troubling ways in America. So much attention is brought to the question of race in America. How have we evolved? How have we improved? Where is that evolution now? Might be a way to put it. We'll talk to Spencer about that next. Thanks for being here. The next hour, the big power hour, we kick it off with Spencer as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Show. I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. This is a horrible situation in Turkey and Syria. Now they are set to get help from the United Nations after a devastating earthquake hit those nations. That, according to a tweet from Secretary General Antonio Guterres. The quakes have killed at least 2,400 people. Other reports have as many as 2,700 people dying in this horrible earthquake. Most Americans continue to support Ukraine's efforts to reclaim its territory from Russia. That, according to a new survey from Gallup, which found 65% of U.S. adults support the embattled country reclaiming its territory, even if a prolonged conflict comes of it. The data comes just before the one-year anniversary of Russia's investigation there. A restraining order, it is no longer enough to stop someone from owning a gun, sadly. A federal appeals court ruling in favor of a man who argued that the law preventing him from owning a gun was unconstitutional. He is the subject of a restraining order when police found guns in his Dallas area home. San Francisco reaching a milestone following more winter weather over the weekend. It turns out the city received a full season's worth of rainfall by Saturday afternoon. That means in the last 7 months alone, nearly 23 inches of rain has fallen. Most came from the recent atmospheric river storms that started drenching the Bay Area after Christmas. Meteorologists say this has been one of the rainiest seasons ever, and it's not over yet. Local and state leaders taking a stand against threats of violence to women in politics. They plan to hold a rally in front of Oakland City Hall today. That includes this woman, Senator Aisha Wahab, who represents part of the East Bay, and Oakland City Council member Carol Fife. Both posted voicemail threats they've received on social media of being raped and murdered. They say this is about safety, has nothing to do with freedom of speech. So again, they're rallying today in, I guess you could say, against threats of violence to women in politics, both of which that they've experienced. Officials are checking out the site of a possible meteor crash in Central California. You kind of see that. Does that look like a meteor falling to you? I don't know. The National Weather Service says it's what likely fell late Friday night. Meteorologists confirming they detected the heat and light on their radar. They believe the meteor landed in a field near a state highway. Several people living in Merced County reported seeing a bright flash of light late, followed by a loud boom. So far, no word on any damage there. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses alike. If you need help with your taxes, call Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal, or you can find him online at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
Oh, yeah. How about it? What are we doing here, Albert? Do we bring Spencer right on? Do I have to do acknowledgments? Can I do the acknowledgments after Spencer? How do you want to do it, Albert? You're the big boss. You're the big producer.
Well, the big guest is here, Spencer Christian. Let's get to Spencer, and we'll get to the shout-outs after that.
I love that. I think that was the right decision to make. You know this guy from ABC7, longtime Good Morning America weather guy. He was, Spencer has had the most magical media career, and he's done everything with it. He's dined with kings and princes. He is a legend, if I can say that. I know you're thinking that I'm like laying it on thick. No, I really mean it. I think there's an aspect to Spencer Christian's life that is legendary. High roller, won it all, lost it all. But he's here today for a very serious reason. But we'll still likely have some fun. Please welcome the great Spencer Christian. Yeah.
Thank you. Wow. What an intro. That's awesome.
Well, you know I love you. So,
are we going to go to Cracker Barrel for dinner?
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
So I'm in the middle of a back and forth with Courtney because I changed the graphic, Spencer. Maybe you'll appreciate this.
Okay.
I changed the graphic underneath because I thought she doesn't like to be referred to necessarily as my other half. Okay.
Right.
because I feel like she's more than that. She's, bringing a show, something to the show that she prepares. You saw the tail end of it, I think, this true crime thing, and you're familiar with it, right? This Murder Mystery Monday thing. And she brings it so well. And I felt like to just call her my other half and true crime analyst is to reduce her to like she wouldn't have it if she weren't my other half.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
She noticed that I took off Mark's other half, and she's angry about the fact that I took that off. So I cannot win. I'm telling you.
You cannot win. You cannot win.
Yes, I know. I just don't know. I thought I was doing her a favor, and now she's actually angry at me for it. I don't know how.
Nothing.
How long have you been married now, Spencer Christian?
I was married to my first wife for 29 years, and I always like to point out that even though it was amicable, I was not the one who wanted to move on. I've been married to my second wife, my wife Lynn, for 15 years. So altogether, I've been married for 44 years.
And the reason then is the point. You know how to do this. Like, you wouldn't have made this mistake. You would have checked with her and said, "Hey, should I change this?"
Well, but I may have made the same mistake.
Thank you.
I may very well have made the same mistake.
But I want to apologize to Albert. Who am I apologizing to? I'm apologizing to every community.
I want to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Yes, I certainly didn't mean to take away.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. My bad. I'm sorry.
Even A. Smith.
Spencer, in addition to all the stuff I've talked about, the Good Morning America and that ascendance to this world of really, on top of the media world as you were. You, in your earliest days, grew up under a heavy segregated Jim Crow South.
I did.
And you can remind us a bit. There's a picture up there now.
That's my mom and dad, and I'm the older one standing up there. I was about, let's see, my little brother being held by my dad was probably about 2 at that time. So I was 6. I was 6 and he was 2.
As you remember those days, it was heavily segregated to the point that maybe you were sheltered from some of the abuse, some of the invectives that are hurled toward you, the racist ugliness, or did you see it as a kid? How did you digest that?
A little bit. That's a great question, Mark, because the answer is a little bit of both. I was sheltered to some extent because I grew up in a rural area. Houses were very far apart, so there was no real sense of, there were no stores or shopping areas, no malls or anything like that. It was only on weekends when we drove to the city, to Richmond, to do our shopping that I was exposed to, the signs that said, whites only and colored only, and the facilities that were there for blacks, the water fountains, the restrooms, all those things were always left in a state of disrepair by the merchants. And we're talking big time merchants like Sears and JCPenney and all that. And the facilities for whites were always shiny and new and well maintained. But when we got back home to our little rural, oasis, my parents gave us so much love and affection that we felt kind of sheltered from the harsh realities of racism that was in your face every day when you had to go out into a mixed environment.
What kind of work did your dad do?
My dad was a laborer, physical laborer. He worked in the Newport News shipbuilding company. Newport News, Virginia. It's about a 1-hour drive east of this little rural town, Charles City, where I grew up. And he did heavy, worked with heavy equipment, did heavy lifting. The title of his job was chipper. And what he did was he worked as a builder on these nuclear-powered submarines and aircraft carriers. Back in the days when I was a kid, my dad was working for the shipyard. The Newport News Shipbuilding Company had an exclusive contract with the U.S. Defense Department to build all of its aircraft carriers and nuclear-powered submarines. But he worked long, hard hours out in the elements. I mean, in the heat and humidity of summer in Virginia and in the freezing cold of winter, he was out there doing that heavy physical work.
Somebody's asking what years was all of this? Like roughly what years are we talking about?
Yeah, I was born in 1947, and the Civil Rights Bill wasn't passed until the one 1964, when I was 17. The Voting Rights Act was signed into law in 1965 when I turned 18, the year I graduated from high school. So my entire childhood and a few of the years leading into my adult life were spent living under Jim Crow segregation, because even after these landmark pieces of legislation became law, they weren't widely enforced until after 1970. So I was 21, 22, almost 23 years old by the time all of those vestiges of all those visible signs of segregation came down.
And that's such an important point to be made, because what we're seeing is the vestiges of those attitudes. And I hope it's just vestiges. I would suggest maybe there's an undercurrent of those attitudes that birthed the Jim Crow South, the segregation, the view of a race that shouldn't participate in the rest of the culture. Those attitudes persist, but they manifest in different ways now. I wonder if you can give me your perspective on that.
You know, Mark, it breaks my heart to say this, but I think that undercurrent that you refer to is rising now. And I think people like, Trump and DeSantis and the politicians who play to fear and ignorance and bigotry have contributed to the rise of that undercurrent. I was very optimistic about the direction of the country in terms of race relations and equal opportunity and all that. I was very optimistic about that in the late 60s, even though it was a painful period that civil rights demonstrators had to go through, being beaten and in many cases killed and arrested to awaken the country's conscience. But I was very optimistic after that, going into the 70s and 80s, even the 90s. There were so many more opportunities for people of color than had existed when I was a kid growing up. There seemed to be a sort of a general acceptance on the part of most Americans that we need to reach a level of acceptance and not equality, but because that's never going to happen, but justice. But boy, we've turned so ugly in the last decade. I mean, people who used to be quietly racist and would not say ugly things in the public forum are now just saying it openly and wearing their bigotry proudly on their sleeves. Anti-Semitism is on the rise, or at least open expressions of it, and open expressions of racism and homophobia. And I don't know what it's going to take to turn all that around.
Yeah, this is a really... Yeah, go ahead, Kim. Sorry.
And this might be a really weird question, but I've always wondered what seeing those signs that said you weren't allowed in a restaurant or you weren't allowed, how does that feel? And I kind of think, I might think, well, I wouldn't want to go in there anyway. If you don't want me, I don't want you. Or is it a constant downbeating of like, again with the racism, again, like just kind of weighing on you? How do you come away from that? And what are your thoughts when you're faced with it?
Kim, that's such an important question because it feels dehumanizing. And in the case of Black Americans, when I was a kid growing up, we couldn't say, well, I don't want to go in there anyhow, because we had no other options, right? We had to go into the places that put it in your face that you were a second-class citizen and you were not to even be expected to receive, you were not even to expect to be treated equally. So it was a dehumanizing experience. And that's what it was meant to do. It was not only meant to satisfy the feelings of the bigots who wanted to say, see, I'm superior to these people. It was also, this system of segregation was also designed to make you feel like somehow you're inherently inferior and didn't deserve this equal treatment. Somehow, to my amazement, there were so many people, including my parents, who were able to instill some kind of sense of belonging or of worth in their kids, even though we were exposed to a society every day when we left home that told us to stay in your place. Somehow my parents were able to instill in my brother and in me that our place was wherever we wanted it to be. And I know it sounds kind of storybookish, but that's the only way we could have survived. And had any expectation of having that kind of magical life that Mark described that I've had.
Yeah, it really speaks to the power of that family and your folks. When you talk about it, I think, man, they just really must have been extraordinary to somehow insulate your kids from the bitterness. You could easily be bitter. It's kind of what Kim was saying, like, how did you feel? And you say, it's dehumanizing, and you could certainly dedicate your life to getting back at that system, or a bitterness that could consume you, and probably to no positive end. But that's
really,
not what happened. That's
such a white person question to ask.
It's a great.
I mean, doesn't it feel like it's such like a, well, how do you think it feels, Kim? But I mean, because I put myself in that position, and I think, how would I feel in those years? How would I feel looking at that sign? And I just don't know. You want to understand.
Yeah, Kim, I know exactly what you're saying, and I understand exactly your reason for asking it. And it's not, I wish it was more white people would ask that question. Well, more people who have not had my experience would ask that question, because you want to know how I felt growing up. And that's under those circumstances, and how in the world did I find a sense of self-worth, through all of that, and even imagine that I could, have the life I've had. It's a very important question, and I wish more people would ask it, because it shows a sense of empathy and curiosity.
And now you're seeing. Yeah, go ahead, Kim. Sorry.
Speaking of the life you've had. I mean, when Mark says that, dining with princes, hanging out with presidents, he really isn't kidding. So, your life was exactly wherever you wanted it to be.
Yeah. As my parents watched my career unfold, they pinched themselves every day, asking, can this be real? Did our son really not only interview, but get to have a relationship with President Jimmy Carter? So that photo you just showed was from his 95th, his 75th birthday celebration in Americus, Georgia in 1999, because I had interaction with the Carters over a period of years during my Good Morning America days. When I moved here to the Bay Area in 1999, happened to be the year that Jimmy Carter turned 75, and an associate of his, and in fact, a fairly well-known pianist, classical pianist named David. David's name is escaping me now. It'll come to me. And he knows the Carter family better than I do, and he invited me to on their behalf, to MC Jimmy Carter's 75th birthday celebration in America's
Wow.
Georgia. Wow. Yeah, incredible event attended by dignitaries and,
wow. Did you open with a joke, or how did you do? How did you remember? How did you?
David Osborne.
Because normally you'd start with something lighter. What was it?
I want to give David Osborne, that musician I mentioned, a props for this. But yeah, so when David called me and said the Carter family would like you to MC Jimmy's 75th birthday celebration, I said, what? Are you kidding? Where is it going to be held? He said it's going to be in this grand old theater in Americus, Georgia, that dates back to the late 1800s. And Jimmy used to go there as a kid and see movies. And it was attended by, I think, something like 900 people. Sam Donaldson. There were many people there to pay tribute to him or to roast him. Sam Donaldson from ABC News was there. Helen Thomas from UPI, and a bunch of dignitaries, UN people and U.S. senators and all that. And I was the freaking MC. I couldn't believe it. So apparently the Carters must have liked what I did, because 20 years later, when he turned 95, which was just a few years ago, they invited me back to MC that event.
Wow. Wow. Did you just dust off the old MC material and just do the same stuff?
I could have, because there were some people in that audience that had not been at the first one.
Yeah. Helen Thomas wasn't around to hear it anymore. Let me ask you this. But I am curious. This is my own whatever. So you had to find the right material to open with to kind of warm the crowd up. You did start with something like light humor. Like, you're good at that.
Well, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, Mark. I mean, this is not a short story. I'll try to condense it a bit. But I did start with something light, and I explained how when I first met President Carter, I was doing an interview with him on the grounds of the Carter Presidential Library in Atlanta. It was during the Democratic National Convention in 1988, and he was out for his morning run. He used to be an avid runner, and he came running up to me as I was setting up with my cameraman, all sweaty and everything. I said it that way, and he said to me, "Hi, Spencer. I'm Jimmy Carter." I said, as if I didn't recognize him. And so the crowd just laughed, and I could see that he and his wife were laughing. And then I felt, okay, good, I got him. So now, then I went into some of the serious stuff, you know, and talked about all of his achievements apart from politics. Then later in the program, there were entertainers I had to introduce from time to time. He was a big fan of Pat Boone, so Pat Boone came there and sang, and the Andrew sisters, the McGuire sisters came and sang. So in between these acts, I had to fill time, right? So at one point, someone came to me and said, they can't get some of the musical equipment working. We need you to fill 10 minutes. I went, okay. So by this time, I used up, I thought maybe all of my material, but then something flashed, a light bulb went on, and I told this story. You two may remember when Carter first ran for president in 1976, Playboy did the interview with him, and he said,
"Lust in my heart." That's
his
right.
Christian faith, and you said he had committed lust in his heart, right? Okay. You also recall that Billy Carter, his brother, embarrassed the family a lot with his, public behavior. So here's the story I told. I refreshed the crowd's memory about the Playboy interview, but I didn't use the term for which he was known. And I said, I have many. Now that I think about it, I have a lot in common with Billy Carter, whom I had also interviewed. I said, Billy and I both have worked at gas stations. Billy and I both like beer. And Billy and I both have brothers who've committed lust in their hearts. So,
wow.
When I said that, the crowd was in uproarious laughter. And I looked at the Carters to see how they were reacting. And he paused. He paused for a second, and then he had this big grin, and everybody was like, it's okay to laugh.
The king is laughing. It's okay. That's so funny. Wow. That's really, and by the way, that's a ballsy move. You could be much more tentative, but I think you gain more points for taking that. Taking that bold move. Yeah.
That was one of the things that Sam Donaldson said to me after the event. He said, "Man, I can't believe you had the balls to tell that story." He said, and it worked for you.
So cool. Spencer, we love you. And I encourage everybody to pick up your book. I think it's a quick read, and it details some of what I should say you've detailed here for us. I think it's called You Bet Your Life. Is that it?
Yeah, You Bet Your Life is the title. And the subtitle is How I Survived Jim Crow Racism, Hurricane Chasing, of which I've done a lot, and gambling. And you know that story.
Yeah, that.
There's never been anything like this.
Right. That's true. What is that, Kim?
Oh, I have another question about racism. I know. I'm sorry.
Yes, the white person in the front row, please. Go ahead. What's your question?
We were going to end it on a happy note, but I just wonder, you talked about the dehumanizing effect that it had, and I wonder how it carries to now. What are the after effects of that? And do you still have feelings like that? Do you have anger? How is it now?
I love this question. So it was a growing process for me as a young person to get to the point where I had that healthy self-esteem. And so I think earlier I referred to sort of a mixed thing, and I didn't quite elaborate on that. So yes, there were moments when I felt dehumanized and angry, felt a sense of moral outrage, a sense of indignation because I had to face this every day. But then on the other side of that was, were the life lessons my parents were teaching me, and that the pastor of our church was preaching every day, and that Martin Luther King was preaching when I'd watch his speeches on TV. And all of that somehow shaped that side of me that says, I don't like this, it's wrong, And I'm morally outraged about it, but I'm going to be a strong person, and I'm going to assert myself, and I'm going to show them I'm just as good as they are. So I'm not going to hate them, and I'm not going to, go out and burn their houses down, but I'm going to show them that I'm just as good as they are. And that was the side of me. Obviously, that was the dominant side. Does that make any sense?
No, totally. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And success was had.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that those cross currents make sense, that they'd have to exist and one would prevail, right? But we're all a mixture, a texture of a lot of stuff that's happened in our lives. It's just that your life has been punctuated by such an intense part of American history, modern American history, that your perspective, I think, is just is such a healthy one. Wow. Well, I love talking with you about anything, but this is really special. So thanks a lot for joining us today, Spencer.
Oh, by the way, about that Cracker Barrel date, I just want to say that I was I was listening to a comedian recently who had a routine called Good Name, Bad Name, and he said, for example, Cracker Barrel, good name for a restaurant, bad name for a hip hop group.
Yeah.
Cracker Barrel.
Well, I mean, in the South too, Cracker Barrel. I don't know. Man. It just feels like I don't know.
Sorry, I just had to throw that out.
There's a lot of stuff down there, man. I just can't. I can't.
I love you guys. I love you guys.
All right, Spencer Christian. Good stuff. Yeah.
He's
love
awesome.
That guy. Truly love that guy.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We'll stop for Kim's news. Update the situation in Turkey. Also, there's a quake in Buffalo, New York.
No damage on that one, though.
Yeah, it was in the 4s.
Yeah.
Yeah. But man, the Turkey and Syria quake, it's, when you get up close to an 8 and the aftershocks have been almost as intense, that's going to do a tremendous amount of damage. And I know, just to bring it home, those cumbersome regulations, we need to get out from under the regulations. Yes, you should be able to build whatever you want, right? Without having to worry about making it earthquake safe or any of that. Yeah, the reason that we have a shot at less loss of life, we have a shot at it, and at surviving these quakes in quake country is because of those protections that are literally built in to a lot of the homes, apartment houses, and workspaces that we occupy. I would just say, as I look at the rubble that is Turkey and the rubble that is Syria, and I'm not saying, having lived through the quake in San Francisco as well, and in Los Angeles, that there isn't serious destruction that can still be done. But give me some basic earthquake codes. Give me some basic regulations. I call them protections. Make it incumbent upon that builder to protect myself and my family with a building that can stand up to a quake. That's the only shot you have sometimes. Anyway, I look at that heartbreaking destruction and the loss of life, and I think, that can happen here. Certainly a quake will happen here. And then the question then becomes, what preparations have we taken? So there's that. Anyway, Kim will update that more. I've got some law and disorder on the other side. Smash the like button like a boss. Thank you for being here on Monday's show. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Mark Thompson Show. I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Let's get right to the economy because Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is now dismissing recession fears. During an interview on Good Morning America, she said the economy remains strong and resilient. Yellen pointing to the recent jobs report that showed more than 500,000 new jobs were added in January, as well as an unemployment rate now of 3.4%. Pope Francis says he is deeply saddened by a pair of debilitating earthquakes that have left thousands dead in Turkey and Syria. The Pope taking to Twitter to share a prayer for the more than 2,600 victims confirmed dead, as well as for the emergency personnel working to clear away all the rubble. The United States among the nations offering to aid the region. Again, Turkey and Syria, and that was a magnitude 7.8 earthquake. New Hampshire's congressional delegation, there's a beautiful picture of New Hampshire in the fall. Beautiful. New Hampshire's congressional delegation, though, is vowing to uphold the state's first in the nation primary status. The Democratic National Committee has decided to give South Carolina the first primary. In a joint statement, the delegation said while President Biden and the DNC continue to push a plan of political convenience, they will not be successful. And Tennessee lawmakers are considering a plan that would finally allow pets to have their due when a couple is getting a divorce. Let me get you well, it's kind of a sad picture, actually, but there you go. Divorce. So Tennessee lawmakers are considering a bill that would determine what happens to a family pet when a couple gets divorced. The measure, sponsored by Democrats, would allow a court to be involved in whether a pet is provided full or partial custody with their owners in the case. If passed, the bill would take effect July 1st. And this report, sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. If you need help with your taxes, call Steve Moskowitz. He's at 888-TAX-STEAL. He's also at MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Albert, I probably need another minute here. I don't know. I'm busy. Courtney's arguing with me, and the world is coming apart.
Should I just make that reservation for you for the Cracker Barrel? I could just hit.
Dude, I'll be lucky if I get her to the Cracker Barrel. Who would have thought that I really tried to do something that I really thought she'd appreciate it. This is how completely unplugged I am and disconnected from sensible thought, I guess. You know, I thought she wouldn't want to be known.
I'll join you after those reservations, Mark. I'll make it for 2, and if she's not going to go through, I'll gladly join.
You'll join me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make the best of it. We'll make the best of it.
The Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
Would you like some more news?
No, I want to talk to Steve Moskowitz. Can I do that? I'm really happy that Steve is around, and he's rested and ready. That's right. After 2 weeks away. Put it together for the great Steve Moskowitz, everyone. Love it. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Kim. Thanks very much.
I was kind of saying last hour as we welcome you back, this is the mad dash, you know, as we begin to see looming deadlines and taxes as something that we need to deal with, even as the new year brings us new ways to try to make money, side hustles. There are a lot of people who are on incomes associated with Social Security or other perhaps pensions, but they're also making money on the side. How do you balance all of this and protect yourself from the tax man taking a lot of that?
Well, not only protect yourself from the tax man, but if you have a side hustle, that's a business. And there are so many tax benefits available to business owners only. If you're an employee, sorry, the law is actually more narrow for you. If you're a business owner, it's open to so many areas. And we can do things like put in pensions for you. You say, well, wait a minute, I work at some company, they have a pension. If you have your side hustle, you can have that on the side. You can also have your own pension. Instead of paying all those taxes, you put money away for your retirement. And there's all kinds of benefits to that. There's 4. 1, you pay less taxes. 2, your pension earnings are not taxed while they're in there. 3, almost everything else, you have to write the check by December 31st, 22, the deductor from 22. Not with most of the pensions, and there's all kinds of different pensions, and you can have multiple pensions. With the pensions, you get up to the time of filing the return plus extensions for many of them, meaning depending on the type of business you are, you may have until September 15th or even October 15th to earn the money, write the check, put it in the pension, and then deduct it from 2022. And there's special federal protections with the pensions. So if you get sued for anything, whether it's in business or you had an automobile accident or somebody says, 15 years ago, you looked at me the wrong way and you caused me all kinds of distress and you owe me $1 zillion. They can't touch your pension. And although I hate to mention his name, the poster boy for this is O.J. Simpson, because O.J.'s had a multi-million-dollar judgment against him for many years, but he's not lost one penny of his pension. And that's just one of a whole bunch of things that potentially can be done.
That's a great example, though.
Pensions had to be through a company or a union. Is a pension just a retirement vehicle like an IRA or a 401k?
So I use the term pensions interchangeably with retirement accounts, although there are some technical differences. But what I'm talking about here is people setting up, and yes, it is through a company, but I'm talking about people setting up their own company. So Mark is talking about you have a side hustle. Well, if you have a side hustle, you set up your own business, and through that business, you have the pension.
Oh, okay.
It's, but you see that there are vagaries here. There are a lot of specifics to keep track of. So, look, I'd recommend, as I have to you for a couple of months now, a call to Steve Moskowitz, 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAXDEAL, and ask him. Say, hey, look, I saw you guys talking about this. I heard, you mentioned it a few times. Would my situation qualify for any sort of benefit, or might you be able to shed some light on my situation? And Steve will tell you, all right? Anywhere in the country, anywhere in the Bay Area, anywhere in California. 888-TAX-DEAL. You can also find him online, MoskowitzLLP.com, Moskowitz, Moskowitz, LLP.com. Steve, great to have you back. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Ken.
All right. Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Right on. Right on.
He's nice.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, I wanted to get to some law and disorder, if I can. I give you a one little thing before I get to law and disorder, and it's a follow-up to that Dallas Zoo story. Remember the Dallas Zoo?
How could I forget the little monkeys?
Yeah, the little monkeys. And there was even a clouded leopard that got out of the enclosure after a lot of these different fences and enclosures were breached by, again, these are, people are, well, I have 2 points to make. They're breached by either people who are just trying to cause general mayhem and just trying to, like vandals almost, but also because Texas has very loose laws when it comes to keeping an exotic animal. And here's a great movie you should see. It's a documentary. Sorry, this is, I'm working the call center as well as doing the show here. Yeah.
Thompson family household. How
That's
can I help
right. Yeah. Hello. Can we help you? Press 1 if you're, So remind me to kill that when I
No, I think it's great.
Yeah,
I mean,
do
who
the
has a
set tomorrow.
landline anymore that rings like that? That's beautiful.
Well, they not only have a landline, but as you may recall, they have an answering machine. I mean, remember the old machines they used to have? They have one. So the whole experience, in fact, I'll show you. The whole experience is like walking back in time. But they are magical people, and my poor dad is not in the best shape right now. But all right, so the movie that I was going to recommend to you, the documentary, is called The Elephant in the Living Room, I believe it's called. And it's all about people who keep exotic pets as exotic animals as pets. It's a horrible thing, and it varies state to state as to whether or not you can do it. And so in Texas, the laws are very loose. And so it's thought that some of the breaching of the Dallas zoo might be associated with jacking some of these animals and then turning them around on the black market. So I draw your attention to that, and also to the fact that they did catch the dude who did it, right, Kim? He's a 24-year-old, I believe.
That's right. Yeah. Put the monkeys allegedly right in this closet. That's where they were found, in an abandoned house in a closet.
Yeah. Animals are disappearing in Dallas. 12 squirrel monkeys stolen from a family-owned Louisiana zoo. And the clouded leopard I mentioned to you, the killing of the vulture I'd mentioned to you as well. And these are very fragile creatures, arguably not even in habitats that can accommodate them in any sort of real ongoing way. And yet that's the system we have, zoos, right? And then, just on the zoo thing, you can say, well, as these primates and other animals are wiped out on the face of the earth, at least we have some habitat, some structure, some organization that protects like literally the last handful on earth.
And sometimes they'll do breeding programs, so they'll try to repopulate, but still it's repopulating in captivity. It's not, they're wild animals that, you'd love to see them in the wild.
Yeah. But this Dallas Zoo has had a bunch of escapes over the year. They had a 300-pound gorilla escape in 2004. It's, we talk about the fact that they have a good reputation, but it gets really cold there. And then there are questions as to the habitats and their ability to withstand the cold. And I'd suggest that a lot of these zoos are troubled when you actually look at the specifics. So now the zoo has added cameras, and hopefully they'll keep a lid on this. But I'm just suggesting they exist in an environment that is much looser about people hanging on to exotic pets, and those exotic pets are worth a lot of money. And so if you can sell them, you can cash in. So, Albert, what would you like to do? Law and Disorder? What else can we do? You tell me. I'm losing track, man.
Yeah, Law and Disorder sounds good. I'll hit the open right now.
All right, here we go. Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
You've got an insurrection. I've got an insurrection. Everybody's got an insurrection. The guy in Santa Clara, they have charged him with combating the police line during the January 6th insurrection. Patrick Allen Borns in Santa Clara has been accused of taking part in the tunnel clash. The tunnel clash, they had to break up all that mayhem into different areas of conflict. The tunnel clash is when they were beating the crap out of that one officer. And that was an area that was covered with different people who were live streaming the event, recording it for posterity, or security cameras. And that's how they identified this Santa Clara guy. So he's been charged with a federal felony and other crimes, identified as part of that mob. Patrick Allen Borns, he's 59 years old, arrested by the feds over the weekend. And the attorney for the guy said that his client is just becoming aware of the charges. Just found out about them.
Just now?
Yeah.
Surprise!
We
there
just
you
got the
are,
word
right
in.
with the hats in the red, in the middle of the red circle there in the middle of the tunnel.
Yeah.
You're surprised?
He said that Borns got caught in the crowd and left as soon as he could. Is that right? Mr. Borns' only involvement that day, this is through his attorney, was as a single individual who went to the Capitol to exercise his First Amendment rights. We hope to be able to find a proper resolution to this matter, given his long-standing love of our nation. That's funny. People show their love in different ways, I guess. But he's been charged with the felony count of obstruction of a law enforcement during a civil disorder and misdemeanor counts of essentially saying that he illegally stayed on restricted grounds, committed disorderly conduct, and engaged in physical violence on those grounds. This is not a guy who just got caught up in it and then hit the road when things got violent. This is a guy who participated in it. So
it looks like he's, according to the picture there, he looks like he's headed right in.
Yeah. He was part of what they say was a lengthy confrontation at the Lower West Terrace, known again, as I was telling you, as the tunnel standoff. And he is accused of assaulting Officer Michael Fanone and pulling him into the crowd. So again, all of that is going on in the case of that Santa Clara man. A daughter is charged after her mom's body was found in, it's not good, the freezer.
Oh.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, a Chicago woman has been accused of keeping her mother's dead body in a freezer for nearly 2 years.
No.
She lived in a nearby apartment, and Eva Bratcher, 69, appeared to just be concealing her 96-year-old mother's death because she wanted to cash the Social Security checks.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
When
They
your mom
set her
says she
bond at
didn't want a
$20,000.
funeral, no,
Yeah.
that's not what she meant.
Really, really amazing how low some will go. Am I right? A worker stole.
That's the daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't trust your own family. I mean, that just is brutal. Finally, in Law and Disorder, a school worker stole $1.5 million worth of chicken wings.
Mhm.
Now,
As
this
one does.
this, believe it or not, is something of a tried and true hustle. Here's how it worked. This person would order chicken wings. They're not on the menu at the Harvey School District, just south of Chicago. But the records show that the school had ordered 11,000 cases of chicken wings over 19 months. This sparked an investigation. Again, why are we ordering all these chicken wings if they're not even on the menu? And it cost the taxpayers more than $1.5 million, according to court records. Well, Vera Liddell, the district's former director of food services, has been charged with 2 felony counts
Oh, Vera.
of continuing financial crimes enterprises and thefts exceeding $1 million. 66 arrested this week. And the public defender's office is going to represent her. I guess she spent most of the money. It began in July 2020, all of this. And you'll remember July of 2020, the pandemic had really still closed a lot of schools.
Yeah.
But they still prepared meals and could pick up student meals. Parents could, or anybody could, for kids. And Liddell began placing hundreds of unauthorized orders for food items, primarily chicken wings. The chicken wing orders continued, and they were made at a Michigan headquartered distribution company that Liddell had dealt with for some time. When the orders were ready, Liddell allegedly would make a trip to the food company's facility and actually pick up the food. Cases of chicken wings would then be loaded into a cargo van that belonged to the school, right? And then, according to surveillance videos, that stuff would be brought back. Employees at Gordon Food Service didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. The school district includes 6 elementary schools and a middle school. They all paid for the poultry invoices. And then, upon closer review, one of the business managers discovered individual invoices signed by Liddell. That's how the trail of wings led back to her, and she was ultimately arrested. Now, there are 2 things that stand out here. First of all, what happened to all those chicken wings?
Yeah.
What happened to all those chicken wings I ordered? 11,000 cases of chicken wings, whereabouts unknown. All of those chicken wings she went to pick up. It's suggested maybe she sold them, maybe. But the other thing is, this is not the way these scams usually work. That's what surprised me. Normally, there are 2 people working the scam at minimum. The one ordering the stuff and the one working at the place who gets the order but never fulfills the order, just says it was fulfilled, right? Because that's the way and then you have money, right? You cut the person in who works at the place that has the chicken wings. They never have to fulfill the order, just pocket some money. And you pocket, the lion's share of the money because you hatched the order. You're the mastermind. That's not what happened here. So there's still a lot of stuff that has to be told. And the other thing I would say, Kim, this is not the first scam regarding chicken wings. In Syracuse, New York, a father was accused of stealing $41,000 worth of chicken wings from the restaurant where he worked.
What is it with wings?
Exactly. What is it with wings? And then in 2013, 2 workers at a frozen food distribution center in Atlanta, they were accused of taking $65,000 worth of chicken wings. Again, probably to resell. But I'm just saying, yeah, the chicken wing ideas, they continue to spring forth. That, my friends, is Law and Disorder for today. We have close.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on the Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Yeah, be careful out there. Strike the like button like a boss. Smash it.
Smash
with
it
your
with your iron rod.
Damn right. I will get the acknowledgments in a second. I just wanted to tell you one story out of San Leandro that was wild. I saw this on NBC Bay Area. The woman who was looking to find her natural father. Okay, you know, there are a lot of those situations where after a child is adopted.
Sure.
Finds out that the father is actually the mother's fertility doctor.
Oh, yeah.
Wild.
What?
Yeah. To prove her ethnicity to childhood naysayers, this woman took an ancestry DNA test at 40. And she said, I remember I was really impatient. I just wanted to prove to everybody that I'm Mexican and that he is my dad. With a European mother and a Mexican father, she was shocked to see she had no Mexican DNA in her. And the surprise didn't stop there. Scrolling through the list of relatives on the app, she saw a last name that rang an eerie bell. The name belonged to her mother's San Leandro fertility doctor. She and her sister knew the name because the parents were relatively open about their fertility issues. They were under the impression that their mother was artificially inseminated with her father's sperm, but instead, apparently, it was the fertility doctor. Wow. She reached out to the doctor, found the number, left a message, and she's been blocked. She is not. She's not been able to reach him.
You know, what an ego. I don't know why this isn't the first story where a fertility doctor, I think there was even an SVU based episode based on this. So is it such an ego to think that you want to kind of propagate your sperm in the world, that you want your DNA out there, the more of it the better? What is it about that? It's kind of yucky.
Yeah, no, it is. It's all. I think you're right when you talk about ego. That's exactly what it is. The doctor said this was a one-off case. He believes it was only
got
once.
in there. Oops.
Yeah, it was. This is from. They finally NBC Bay Area tracked him down, but of course they actually looked, and they found 2 other cases.
Of course.
A half sibling in Washington, and Velasquez's sister, apparently also. My apologies, his office wrote. It seems that the sands of time have erased items that I am not proud of. However, math and science are impossible to argue with. When asked how many times he used his own sperm with unknowing patients, he said, only ones whose donors did not show up. How many times did donors fail to show? That's when the doctor ended the interview. So there's no telling what the numbers are.
Big old lawsuit.
Yeah. Pretty brutal. Pretty brutal. Well, that wraps up our offering, but we must tell you, we are crowd funded. You are the crowd, and we appreciate the funding. Without you, we go away. I'm trying to stay on the air live from Washington, D.C. I know this microphone isn't what it should be. My brother, who listens to the show, said, hey, your microphone sounds a little muffled compared to everybody.
It's fine.
I need to address that, and I will get to back to the West Coast, and I'll get a better mic and better rig set up, because it looks like I might be here off and on for a little while. Yeah. But as I go back and forth to the hospital, we try to keep these shows on the air for you. And Kim is so great, and Albert's so great, and Tony, everybody stepped up so well, and all our regular contributors. Today we had Spencer. Today we had Andy Fraknoi, the great astronomer. And of course, Courtney, my girlfriend, who's also our true crime analyst, along with David Katz, who's our regular Thursday participant. So really, really cool. Now, if you want to support the show, it's themarkthompsonshow.com. You go to Patreon or PayPal. We acknowledge all our Patreon and PayPal contributors at the end of the show. You'll see everybody's name who's contributed on that screen. And those who contribute a little bit more, your font is a little bit bigger, just to show you that we so appreciate it. But, we've got some great stuff planned for the year ahead. Good morning, Mark and Kim. Best wishes to your dad, says Elwin. Thank you, Elwin.
Elwin.
Big shout out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really do appreciate that, Elwin. Still the coolest name, Elwin. Love that name. There's a $4.99. Walter, $9.99. Keep up the great work. Aloha, baby. Aloha,
Thank you
Walter.
so much.
Thank you so much, Walter. Thank you. Really nice, Walter. Thank you, my friend. Francine Price for $20. Super sticker. Come on, Francine. Yeah. Right on, Francine.
Thank you.
And wow, Kevin Hobbs. What can we say about Kevin Hobbs? Kevin is a regular participant, regular viewer, regular listener, and regular supporter at really big levels. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. But if anybody can get me close, it's Kevin Hobbs. Kevin Hobbs, I'm dressed for a handful of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Kevin, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you who stepped up so markedly during this challenging time and provided us with your support. Visit themarkthompsonshow.com for more ways you can help. All right, so what's happening on Nikki's show today?
Oh, we got a lot happening on Nikki's show. I think we're going to be talking to, I don't know, a lot of different people about a lot of different things.
Wow. Well, that does sound good.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, Kim, you
It really,
stole
really
my
does.
playbook of what I tell Mark. What's on the show tomorrow? I'm like, well, yep, we got a lot of cool things and a lot of cool people to talk to.
A lot of things happening. Gonna be great.
I'll mention tomorrow we've got David K. Johnston joining, among others. So looking forward to David. And you can, if you have any questions for David K. Johnston, you can send them to me and I'll make sure I work them in. It's themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. There's some stuff about Nikki's show.
Yeah. Yellen coming to the president's and the economy's defense.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Talk about the Grammys.
Yeah, you'll talk Grammys too. A lot to do. Thanks all of you for joining us. Until tomorrow, live from Washington, D.C. Bye-bye.